This is Ali Irfan, and today I am with a very new and unique topic, the modern estate system. The modern estate system, which was birthed from the Treaty of Westphalia, which was signed in 1648 after the 13 years of war in Europe. And after the states, when the states birth in Europe, they spread that concept of state by colonialism and their expansionism agenda or propaganda. Then state is a political entity which contains the basic elements and basic characteristics which has sole or total authority over the over the population which is under a state system. So there are some basic elements of the state, uh, popularly known. These elements are basically four elements. Some of the experts also believe that there's another element like international recognition. The basic four elements are permanent territory, permanent population, its government, and sovereignty. And fifth one can be international recognition. So let's have a short light on these basic elements of a state. First is permanent territory. For a state, it is very necessary to be a permanent state, permanent borders in which that state functions and functions with internal matters without the interference of external powers. And the second is permanent population. So, to be a state, there must be a population, a suitable number of the people, permanent population that should be the part of a state. And the third one, the government. For a state, there should be also some type of government. Government is a type of machinery or group of people which runs the affairs of a state. And the fourth one is sovereignty. Every state is a sovereign. A state should be a sovereign. If some state or some nation is not a sovereign, it cannot be considered as a state in the modern system of states. So a state must be a sovereign. Let's suppose Kashmir, we cannot say Kashmir state because though it has basic territory, basic population, and government structure, but it is not a sovereign nation or sovereign country. That's why we cannot say Kashmir is a state. Like Kashmir, we cannot say Taiwan is a state because Taiwan is not a sovereign entity in the globe map, though it has some particular territory, population, and government structure, but it is not a sovereign entity which can be considered as a state. And fifth one is also believed that it is international recognition. So for a state to be a state, there must be international recognition as well. If some state is not recognized by the all other states of the world, it cannot be considered as states. Let's suppose the very current example of Somaliland. Somaliland has declared itself as a state, as a different country, different state from the Somalia. So Somaliland has particular territory, population, government structure, but it is and somehow it is also sovereign state, but it has not international recognition. Therefore, Somaliland is not considered as a state in the modern state system or in the constitution of United Nations. So, for state, there are basic elements, five basic elements, like as I described it earlier. That should be for a state to be a state. It should have a permanent territory, permanent population, government system, sovereignty, and as well international recognition as well. So let's have some brief light on the origin of the state system, the modern state system. Basically, it is originated or it is birthed after the Treaty of Westphalia, which was signed in 1648 after the after the War of 13 Years in Europe. So after signing the Treaty of Westphalia, these characteristics were set as standards for a state system. So for a state, it must have these basic elements which were mentioned earlier. It also took more progress, especially after decolonization, and after post World War II. The very concept of state was in good progress. And let's have some light on contemporary challenges for a state. As mentioned earlier, that state must be a sovereign entity. So there are some also challenges for a state system, which are challenging the sovereignty of a state, like globalization. So globalization has negatively impacted the sovereignty of a state, interfering in the internal matters or external matters of a state, and in the function in the very functioning of a state. So globalization has connected the entire world and all the states. So like information, like a trade. So all these things have negatively impacted the sovereignty of a state. There are also other factor which has impacted also challenging the very system of modern state, which is supranational organizations like UN and EU, for example, and violent non-state actors. So these also influence the decision of a state or a sovereignty of a state. Some of the decisions are taken or held in the UN, uh, like violating the very sovereignty of a state. So some decisions are not taken by a state, rather they are taken by the UN. And like UN, there is another non-state actor which also impacts the sovereignty of some states like EU, European Union. So European Union is a some union of 28, almost 28 states of Europe. So when some states of Europe are not fully sovereign because their decisions are taken by the very structure of EU, the very policymakers of EU organization or union. So somehow these supranational organizations are negatively impacting or impacting the sovereignty of a state. So briefly, summing up it, the system of state. Modern state system, state is a sovereign entity, sovereign unit which functions its internal or external matters without interference of other entities, and controlling or policing or making decisions in the internal matters of the country or a state or nation, and without the interference of non-state elements or the external elements, maintaining its sovereignty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.